All right.
Kanesa,
Let's do this.
I'm so stoked to have you here. Kanesa Duncan-Seraphin. When I first met you, you were just Kanesa Duncan, and we were just talking story about our kind of similar lives with families and kids since then. But welcome. I'm so stoked to see you. Super fun.
Got married, added on a second last name.
Right? I didn't have to add that on, fortunately.
Yeah.
That'd be a mouthful. Shoe line's already enough. And we're on your island.
Kauai.
We're on Kauai, but when I first met you, you were on Oahu. So we'll talk all about the genesis, but it's really fun because I probably met you for the first time over 20 years ago during the peak of your prone paddling prowess. And we'll talk a lot about that, but it's a great story. It's really fun. I really look forward to sharing with everybody what you do, because if you don't know Kanesa, there's a lot of really good information out there, what you do in the world, in the marine biology, marine sciences world, education, et cetera. So really, really neat, because as we were talking offline, like you're used to being on this side because you have a television program that's very, very accomplished and very celebrated. So just really cool stuff. So I'm super stoked to have you here. Really fun.
Oh, really glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And your hair looks great.
Thank you. It was the debate, because I'm usually in the ponytail. I don't let it out for many people, but here we are.
I appreciate it. What did you said before? You said your hair was having
It had a panic attack.
I love that.
I think it lives in a permanent panic attack.
It's something guys of my age don't have much to worry about when it comes to that.
It's thinning though, actually, which is, at first I was upset about it, but now it's not quite like it used to. If I let it down, it'd be, like this. And
well, I can only imagine with your saltwater life that saltwater and hair and wind, it gets pretty nappy.
You gotta do the bun. I do the bun. I'm
sure you do. Well, listen, super fun. I love having you. I can't wait to talk the story, because again, it was similar. We talked I've got a handful of years on you, but we were competing at the same time. Prone, you at a very different level. I've got a marine biology background, a marine science background. You are still in that world at a very high level. Oh, hold on. Let me correct. I'm going to step back. Welcome to the Passion Project, Dr. Kanesa Duncan-Seraphin.
Yeah, we usually leave that one off.
I know, but just as an introduction, it's important everybody knows who is in the room. So let me do a little bit more of an intro, just to kind of set the tone, who's in the room for anybody that doesn't know you, because it's pretty rad, and we'll go from there. So you are one of the most celebrated, accomplished prone paddlers in history, with 8 world championships across the Molokai Channel. No small feat. 8. And I think you still have the record. Do you still have the record?
No.
Someone got you?
In 2019, the super fast channel. Yeah, I actually just looked at the list of, top times, and my 2004 stock time is still in the top 10, but it slid down the list. I don't know what I'm at, like 6 or 7.
But it took a long time for someone to knock that down.
It did.
It was awesome.
I think it held for 15 years.
It's incredible at the speed of sports growth, and all the board improvements, the science of fitness and peak performers. So it's pretty awesome. We'll talk more about it. But along that line, you also have a Catalina win.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, hold that. We can talk about that. And I was super fortunate to be here to see this. You were inducted into the Hawaiian Waterman Hall of Fame, which is incredible.
I was pretty blown away by that, actually.
So rad. We will get into that, but I just by chance ended up at that event in 2024 to watch that happen. You're the director of the Hawaii Sea Grant Center for Marine Science Education. It's a mouthful. Director, right?
Also amazing.
Amazing. Producer and host of an award-winning TV show that we talked about, Voice of the Sea, like with a zillion awards. And then you're this great advocate and educator in the world of marine sciences and conservation and all this stuff. And there's so many levels of things I'm super impressed by what you do. So just rad. That's why we're here. I'm super excited to dig into it. No small feat. You've done a bunch of stuff.
It's life. Like, you gotta keep going.
Gotta keep going. Well, so when I met you, you were on Oahu, already into the marine biology world.
Yeah.
And the paddling world, all that. And you've lived in Hawaii ever since. I don't think you grew up here, though, did you?
No, I was born in Canada, actually.
Really?
Yeah, really far north in northern Saskatchewan. Like
the Great White North, isn't that what we call it?
Above the tree line, where it's so cold, trees can't grow. So my dad's family is from Manitoba, Morden area. They're farmers. And when my parents were young, so they got married like 19. they moved up to northern Saskatchewan. My dad flew bush pilot, and I was born up there. And then my mom didn't really want to raise me in the super cold Arctic, so they came. My mom's family was in California, and they came back to Bay Area when I was a baby. But my grandma actually went to Roosevelt High School on Oahu. So she was on Oahu because my great-grandpa was in the military. And then she was there when Pearl Harbor was bombed, so she got sent to California after that. But then my mom lived in Aiea for a while.
I'm sorry, where?
In Aiea, it's like west side Oahu.
Oh, okay.
And because my grandpa was in the military, so my family had this connection.
With Hawaii, yeah.
But I'd never been here till I bought a one-way ticket in 1999 to go to grad school, and two, big plastic boxes of stuff, and got on the plane. And my boyfriend at the time came with me, but he went back to California, and I he was planning to go back. He came over to help me move, and I stayed.
And here we are. Wow, that's rad. So that was in '99 for grad school. So let's go back. So where in Northern California were you?
Bay Area. So
like in any specific town?
I lived in Alameda.
Okay. Oh yeah, right on the bay.
Right on the bay there, next to Oakland. So a lot of time in Oakland, and then I moved to Colorado Springs when I was in 4th grade. Did like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade there, and then the Challenger space shuttle blew up. It's like huge event in my life because my stepdad worked for Lockheed Martin. And so like everybody lost their job, the whole town kind of suffered, and we moved back to California, moved in with my grandma, and Alameda again, and went to 7th grade there, and then I moved to Fremont, and middle school, high school, and so it's pretty landlocked.
But you moved around a lot.
Yeah.
How was that?
I think I went to like 15 different schools.
Wow.
It's a lot of moving, and now I've lived in the same house since I got married in 2009, so it's a pretty phenomenal experience to have some roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine, and I've talked to a number of people that moved around a ton like you did. Was it either was really tough or it made you really strong?
Both, I think, yeah. Because you're always getting thrown into a new situation, and especially, I went to a new school in 4th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and those are all really transitional times. Sure. And I was not an early developer, so you're going into situations, and it's just middle school. Like my daughter's in 6th grade right now. She's going into 7th grade, and reliving that time is
tough.
It's tough,
right?
There's so many hormones, and your body's changing so fast, and all the social situations are changing.
Yeah. I'm watching that too with my young gun with Reeve, and it's a tough. Like my daughter did not love high school and all that because it was just, I watched all the girls, like it was tough.
It's tough.
So I didn't have well, we're going down a whole tangent, not important. But I was consistent. Like we didn't move much. Like I went to the same school. So whenever you add in all those variables, like super interesting. And I always just wonder where those things, like how it shows itself down, like the resilience or the ability to talk to people and make friends easily, or that pursuit of like stability, because it sounds like you found it, here. So that's cool. So with your sports background, you must have been playing sports to some degree as a kid.
I swam all growing up.
You did.
And
so wherever you went, you were swimming.
I was just dedicated to that pool and the black line.
Got it. When did that start?
Well, I grew up in Alameda, right? Like how we said, and there's this man, Frank Whedon, who gave free swim lessons to every kid in Alameda. And he's like, all kindergartners should learn to swim. But I actually started ahead of that with him in his backyard pool, and he had these free swim lessons. And it was also equity, like all girls and boys only wear bottoms. And he was just like, everyone should learn to swim, and girls can swim just as fast as the boys. And so I think I had that influence from really early on, and he would like make us hot dogs and ice cream sandwiches and have these little races, and it was just a beautiful thing. And then I turned 6 and I could join the swim team, and my mom was like, no. And I was like, I'm doing this. And so I joined the swim team at 6, and I swam, and I got to, like back then, like McDonald's sponsored swimming. So
really?
Yeah, when I lived in Colorado, I had all my medals were like McDonald's, and like I qualified for the state team, and they flew us. So 10 years old, I was flying to Arizona and stuff on like the state swim team for Colorado.
Wow.
And it was pretty fun. And then they decided like, oh, it's not a spectator sport. So they, there's not a lot of sponsorship in swimming. I think I didn't realize you could do sports past college. Growing up, it was like a foreign idea to me. You know, it was like I thought I would grow up and have to like cut my hair short and, you know, be an old lady.
Oh, that's so funny.
And then
So you never got exposed to like the thought of like collegiate or Olympic levels or.
well, no, I mean, that was like in swimming, you were going to try to get a college scholarship and you were going to try to go to the Olympics. But that was like the end of it, right?
Oh,
you
I
could
see.
swim in college.
But if you didn't go to the Olympics, then you're just done.
You're just
and
done.
You cut your hair off and become a tutu, right?
Right. I mean, I fully was like signed up for that plan. And then I got a couple scholarship offers when I was in high school, but I wasn't, you know, Olympic level, and I was kind of getting burnt out from the black line chasing. And so I didn't accept them, and I chose instead to just take regular scholarship offers, like money I'd have to pay back, loans, and I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Oh.
And I swam there my freshman year, and it was okay, but I got into triathlon, and that was started becoming a soft mecca for triathlon at the time. And our school had just opened this big gym that was like for everybody, and they had this big triathlon thing where it's like you could do a virtual triathlon in the gym. And so I did that, and then these guys did a biathlon like for their senior project, and I did that. And then a swimmer, her like roommate was dating a cyclist, and he built me a bike, and I started riding, and then I started racing triathlon, and like that was just phenomenal.
This is the fun part. I never knew this about you. So that all happened when you were in college. You were kind of burned out on the pool a little bit and got exposed to this new world of triathlon. Again, this is in the 90s, early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s.
Yeah, so that's when it's really starting to blow up. It's so funny because you think now it's like it's been Olympic for decades, but back then it was all new.
No, it was all new, and so two of my housemates went to the Olympics the first year. Like Victor, a guy, he swam with us his fifth year. He's a track athlete, and then he swam his fifth year at Cal Poly. So I swam my freshman and my junior year. I took off my sophomore year, and then I just like went back. I'm gonna show that I can swim and be happy with it, and then leave it behind and do some other stuff. But and then my friend Gina Indersano, she's now the coach for San Francisco, has a triathlon club or a sport at their college. And before that, she coached Stanford. And before that, she was a professional. And we had it was incredible, like triathlon events in our hometown in San Luis Obispo. And I think the best I ever did, I got third at nationals at Wildflower.
And what distances are these? Like
No, I only did Olympic
list?
distance.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a kind of a sprint. Takes like an hour and a half, right? So it's a 1 mile swim. What is it? It's a
I don't know. I know the long
1K.
ones. I know the Ironman. I don't know the short. So let's go back in swimming. What was your area of focus? Were you long distance, short distance, sprint? Like
I did mid distance. So I did breaststroke and IM. So
got it.
like the 100, 200 breast, the 200, 400 IM. But I think like if I look back at it, I was always kind of really good in practice, and then like pretty good in a meet. And in college, I remember I got the record for the national event set, which is like you'd swim the whole practice, you do all the events of the nationals in order. And
in all different strokes?
Right. So everybody would do like, say it's like the 200 free relay, then the 200
medley
relay. You do them all. And then our coach would time us. And like my brother swam after me. He's like, oh, you like still have the record. And so I think if I have like an athletic talent, it's kind of that I can keep going at that 80 to 90% for a really long time. I remember like Mark Allen was super popular, right?
Triathlete.
And so he could run a 3-hour marathon at the end of Ironman, and everybody was like, oh, he's going to be let's just train him for the run. And I think he trained for a marathon one year, and he went like 2 minutes faster than he could run at the end of Ironman.
Crazy.
And well, I'm not Mark Allen, but
very few people are.
I've got a similar kind of skill set, and I think a lot of the endurance athletes are really like that. It's like I can go 90% for a really long time, and if I go like 95%, I don't go that much faster. I just get tired.
Got it. So like you have I would equate it to like a very high, very proficient zone 2. You can stay in zone 2 at a very high level all day.
Yeah.
Go to zone 3, it doesn't change much, but you're going to burn
Right.
Super interesting. So isn't that funny that you figured that out? Like here you are competing in mid distance all this time, but you put them all together and you're like, oh, that's where I kind of excel.
I think I needed something fun. Like I remember as a kid, like not showing up for the mile, you know, it would be like Friday night before it'd be like a 3-day meet, but Friday night was the mile, and then Saturday and Sunday were the shorter races. And I was always, oh, my stomach hurts, I can't make it,
The
and
nerves.
just didn't want to go through the pain of that distance event.
So the sprints hurt, but when you could find this kind of long distance, lower intensity, you could hold it without that kind of pain threshold.
I think so.
Which again, if you extrapolate this later to your long distance endurance stuff, that's exactly what happened, right?
Right.
Got it. All right. Well, we'll get to that. Interesting. When you were in college and you got into tries, what were you doing academically?
Oh, I was the same thing I'm doing now. Like I was majoring in fisheries biology and ecology and evolution and systematic biology, I think, and then I have a minor in English. I was just going to school.
But you could have gone for anything. Why the biology? Like, did you always have a draw to the ocean? Did you have a draw towards sciences? Like, what was the path to that?
I wanted to study fish. Like, I think my whole life, fascinated by fishes, different kinds of fish. And I think it's just I have a love of moving through the water, and I'm fascinated by how fish move through the water, how they know where they are, relative to the environment around them. Like think about if you're completely submersed and you don't have visual cues from the air for land masses, and you have different currents and smells coming by you, and other fish maybe even schooling with you, and then like tuna will go on these, circumglobal navigations. And so I think it's just really, really compelling to understand, like, how do these organisms live their whole lives in these aquatic environments? And like we can go down and play around, but we can't breathe underwater, unfortunately.
Would you if you could?
Oh yeah,
for sure.
But then, I tried scuba diving, and a lot of scuba diving, but the first time it was really, really disappointing, and the heaviness of the equipment and the lack of freedom.
You just want to be a fish.
Right.
Got it. Well, as far as moving on the water and as you said, through the water swimming and on the water paddling, you're probably as close as anybody could be.
I think that's a really neat thing about paddleboarding that I appreciate, as opposed to, 6-man canoe paddling or 1-man or kayak, other stand-up paddling, other kinds of water vessels. Is I really love the fact that it's just your hands and your body and your face, and you're so close to the water, and it's kind of a part of you. But you can go a lot faster than you can if you're just swimming.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about it. So you're at San Luis Obispo. You're getting your focus. Your undergrad is all in the marine biology space. At what point did you determine? Because at this point, you probably hadn't figured out. Prone hadn't come into your life yet when you were in San Luis Obispo, right?
Well, I lifeguarded
Oh, you did?
at Avila Beach.
Oh.
And so we
Okay,
had...
point 2 that I didn't know. Okay, got it.
We had... So on the Central Coast for lifeguard training, all the beaches would kind of hui up. They'd group together. So we trained with Cayucas and Morro Bay and Avila, like our whole different counties. And so through that, I learned about paddleboarding, because there's this guy, Kazimir Pulowski, who is from Cayucas, who used to do the Catalina to California paddleboard channel every year. But he was like this legendary guy. And this was pre-internet, right? And San Luis Obispo was super isolated. Like, it was a throwback era. We were probably living in the 80s, even though it was in the 90s. So everything was just word of mouth. And there was this guy, and then he'd been paddling from Cayucas to Morro Bay, and his board had got bit by a white shark, and so the board was like hanging in this tavern, and it was all legend, it was just like word of mouth, and there's this race, and there's these people who do this thing. And we had these old boards from the East Coast, these Con rescue boards that we used to use for rescues, and we would paddle them around, and I loved it. I really liked to do it, but they weren't fast. And then I had a friend, Chris James, he he started working for Patagonia, and he got a paddleboard through them. And I remember I contacted him, and I was like, what are those boards like? And he's like, I don't know, maybe you just should check out what you have there in Hawaii, because I was going to Hawaii. And then the day I got to Oahu, like that week in the paper, they'd done the paddleboard race. And I remember reading about it, and that year they're like, oh, no women had competed that year.
Are you referring to the Catalina race?
No, Molokai.
Oh, the Molokai.
The Molokai to Oahu paddleboard race. So I moved July 9th, 1999, and then like a week.
Hold on.
Oh,
That's tomorrow.
right.
Wow.
Makes 26 years.
Holy moly. Okay. Wow.
Over half my life. Yeah.
What do you know?
So I read about it in the paper, literally on Oahu, and I was like, I want to do that. But I didn't have any money. I was taking out loans to, pay my rent, because I was getting paid to TA at the University of Hawaii, but my monthly salary didn't cover my room, which was not big. Like my bed fit wall to wall.
Yeah.
And this room that I was renting in a house in Manoa was super perfect, but it was also just a pretty poor time in my life. So I started canoe paddling instead, because it has a much lower entry bar in terms of the equipment you need to have yourself.
Yeah. Okay, rad. So a bunch of stuff there. So let's go back. So when did you decide that UH was the path you wanted to go on?
Oh, that's a funny story.
Oh, we like funny stories.
So I applied to grad school. I wanted to go to Oregon State University, work with Mark Hickson. I volunteered for a summer, and then gone to sea with this lab at UC San Diego. At Scripps, so Ken Smith's lab, and then I'd actually got to go to Antarctica with him too. Wow. So I got into his lab, and then I applied to University of Miami, and I got in there, and then I got into University of Hawaii. And I didn't get into Oregon State, so I was like, oh, that was my top choice. What am I, these other three? And the offer from UH was like the least money. It was the only school I hadn't been to, because I'd worked at Scripps and I'd visited University of Miami on a work trip, and my boyfriend at the time, we had these like stuffed animals, and he kept hiding them behind his back, like pick one, and I kept being like, oh, redo it till I get the octopus that symbolized Hawaii. But it was really that if I looked at what were people doing in Hawaii, what were the grad students studying, I would have picked any of their projects and been happy with it. And I thought like, oh, this is really interesting and important work, and I want to go there. And I think I'd heard stories my whole life, from my family, from my grandma, from a mentor when I worked in Florida, who went to college, went to grad school at UH Manoa, and so I just did it.
Rad. Well, I guess before we get into the details of once you're there, just a couple questions. One, you said that, college, we talked all about the fish and the fishes. Did you have a vision or a goal at that time when you started applying to grad schools? Did you like, I want to be a professor, I want to be a scientist, or I just need to continue to do school to get it? Like, what was the motivation? What was the goal?
Well, my mom had gone back to school when I was little, so she had a high school degree, and she went back to school in natural sciences, and she became a science teacher and then a kindergarten teacher. So I had this like education background from my mom, and I had some kind of dream. I'd worked at a marine science camp, like maybe I'll do marine science camps, but I didn't really understand research all the way. But my academic advisor at Cal Poly, Royden Nakamura, was also from Hawaii, and so he'd helped me to do a research project like in the estuary in California, and talked a lot about his research. And so I knew I was kind of entering that world, and I was interested, but I wasn't sure that I would be good at it. I'd done a research project as part of my work at Scripps, looking at like the stomach contents of deep sea fishes. And then when I came to UH, I really thought I was going to go into research. And I think all the way through my graduate career, so it took me like 6 years to get my PhD here. But by the end, as I was finishing, I was doing a lot more education work again. I'd kind of come full circle. And my lab studied like big fish and sharks. And so we were also a lot of the times being interviewed by the newspaper or doing like National Geographic or BBC or like 10 Deadliest Sharks. And I was frustrated with the way I was portrayed sometimes, and sometimes the information wasn't very accurate. But then the work I was doing with students and things was really meaningful, and I felt like, oh, this is maybe like my calling, and also a puka or an area where there is a need that I could fill here, and jobs that were open. Whereas research jobs, it looked like I was probably going to need to go somewhere else for the next step of my career.
Got it.
And I wanted to stay in Hawaii.
Good choice. Ever think what would have happened had you gotten into Oregon?
Oh.
What would your life be like today?
I'd probably be a lot more a land person because Oregon State's pretty far from the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Who would have known? I mean, sliding doors.
Yeah.
I think you picked well.
I know.
Nice work.
Me too. I remember after I'd been living in Hawaii for a few years and I got off the plane, I was like, oh, just the smell of everything. It's like I'm home, you know? So really grateful to be able to live here and make a living and have a family, and also having been embraced by so much of the Hawaiian culture and being able to like learn some language and things, like it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. It's really cool. Really neat. Real quickly, you had referenced your area of focus was sharks and fish. What was your dissertation?
Oh, my dissertation was about the population biology of scalloped hammerhead sharks, Sphaeronaluinae. So I had like 3 kind of components. Most PhDs have 3 basic chapters. One was a tagging project. So we tagged about 8,500 baby hammerhead sharks in Kaneohe Bay, which is on the windward side of Oahu, and trying to understand like how did they use this nursery area, how long did they stay resident within the bay, which we found is probably over 2 years. So they tend to be, for a live-bearing shark, hammerheads have a relatively large number of young, but then they don't all survive. So, and they also kind of lose weight as they're learning to forage in the bay, which was one of the things that we discovered through tagging. And then we did a genetics study of globally across the world, trying to understand like the degree of natal homing, or like how faithful are the sharks coming back to pup again in that same bay. And basically I could tell the difference between Hawaii sharks and California sharks and Western Pacific sharks, but like along the California coast I can't separate a population, or across Hawaii I can't separate, which kind of makes sense in terms of what we know. Like the hammerheads will use a man-made estuary, for example, a new bay that's been carved out, and they'll go ahead and go in there and give birth. So not like a salmon that's like super homing to its natal stream, but the general area, they seem to return to the general area. And then we did a food conversion study too. So I was also looking at like from how much you feed the hammerheads, you know, how quickly are they able to incorporate that into their tissue. So understanding that early part of their life cycle.
Got it. I just have to ask, and maybe jumping ahead, but Kaneohe Bay on the windward side, there was a lot of hammerheads. I mean, your research was based there, and didn't you do some work on Coconut Island there?
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah.
But as a waterman, as a water person, and as a shark expert, what's that cross section look like in your brain?
I think it looks like the young researchers now in the shark lab. I mean, the women so I was the first girl in our shark lab, and that was kind of, my advisor made a big deal about it because it's kind of, you know, macho work and stuff like that. But now the young ladies that come in, they're the free divers. They're the ones who are holding their breath for so long, going down, you know, putting transmitters on sharks because, you know, the scuba is so loud, right, and rebreathers are technology and require permit. But they're able to hold their breath and go down and do this work on, you know, using long fins and weight belts. And I think they're the really rad physical specimens of the lab. And so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's names that come to mind like the Ocean Ramseys of the world that are doing incredible breath hold work with sharks. I mean, you're talking giant hammerheads, I'm sorry, not hammerhead, don't do that. Giant tigers,
Right.
giant whites, like really incredible. And they really trying to be informative and educational about these species, right? But as a paddler, surfer in Hawaii, I mean, sharks are a conversation that they probably come up constantly to you. What do you tell people about concerns about sharks in Hawaii, if anything?
Well, I think I'm hesitant to give a lot of recommendations. Maybe partly because one time I recommended somebody that if they were on their period, they could still wear a tampon and go swimming, and it would probably be okay, as it wasn't fresh blood and that kind of a thing. And then literally, I think the next day, their swim group, somebody got bit by a white shark in Southern California, and so I think a lot of times, we don't understand animal behavior. Even human behavior is really hard to understand, right? So we can make generalizations about what a population of sharks might do, but there's still going to be a lot of individual variation. And then you've just got to, I think what we would say in Hawaii is like, you got to maka'ala, like you have to pay attention and look for the signs. And I more pay attention to those signs now, I think, as I've not necessarily studying sharks, but looking out for my own safety or others' safety, and also going from, I used to spend a lot of time on a board that's pretty big, and now I spend a lot of time on a boogie board near shore with my family, and there's some comfort in being on something that's 16 feet long versus something that's 3 feet long, and I think there is a difference. But a lot of times, like, the sharks will show themselves, and then you just, like, it's their area, get out of the water.
Yeah.
And that's a practice that I follow pretty faithfully.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a conversation that comes up. I mean, anybody that spends a lot of time in the ocean, especially in Hawaii or areas that are prone to sharks, everybody's trying to either cope with the concerns or pretend there aren't concerns or just work around it. I know I listened to a Laird Hamilton podcast, and he goes, I can feel it. He's like, I just have that sense. Maybe there isn't, maybe there is, but if I have that sense, I'm out. Right. I'm just not going to, he's like, so maybe back to your pay attention,
And I think Kauai feels sharkier to me than Oahu does, and I'm not quite sure why. But yeah, I fairly well agree with Larry. Like, there was a time I was surfing with my husband on the sort of northeast side of Kauai, and we saw a shark, and he's pretty adamant, like, if he sees a shark, when it's showing itself in kind of that way where it's showing itself to the whole lineup, and it's like, here I am, probably meaning like, this is my territory. And certainly we know from shark behavior, when they start posturing, that's a warning sign. And so we told the people, and we turned around and went in, and then the two guys that didn't go in, I saw on the news later that evening that the guy's board got bit.
Wow.
And so it was a definite, like, the shark's cruising the lineup, posturing, like, okay, it's your day. I'll leave it for tomorrow.
I think if I ever see one, I'm out. But I also think that I have people in my friend group or my family that are like, how do you do that stuff? Like, people go, how do you paddle that channel? It's so, like, aren't you scared about sharks? I'm like, when you're racing, you're not thinking about sharks or anything. But I also go back to, like, the number of man hours that people spend in the water in Hawaii to the number of incidents it's 1 in a million. It happens, and but it's so rare.
Right.
But also, be smart, be aware where you go, et cetera, et cetera. So. But
sharks aren't the only thing. Like, the only time I've ever paddled in from a paddle because I was afraid, it was a whale.
Really?
Yeah. They're so big.
Yeah.
And
if they don't know you're there. Or
they don't want you around. Like, I was paddling on the east side of Kauai by myself, and they started grunting at me, and they were, the babies were porpoising, whatever, like, doing tail slaps and breaching, and I turned and went in. And that's the only time that wildlife has sent me in, and it was whales.
Wow. I mean, it's really interesting. In Southern California, I think most people would say, like, sharks are out there, but I'm more afraid of stingrays because that's the
Right,
likelihood of
right.
getting hit by a stingray is much higher than of a shark incident. It's just interesting. Even me, like I've spent my whole life on the water, but as I've gotten older and spending more time here, I think about it more now than I ever have. And even, especially like if my kids are in the water or whatever, but I liked being ignorant or just didn't care as much or more cocky about it. But now I'm definitely more aware.
Well, I have 3 good friends that I'm in the water with often, and they've all been severely bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want anybody to listen to this and go, I'm not going to the water ever again. Kanesa said everybody gets bit on Hawaii. It's not what we're saying, right?
No, not at all. I think they're still in the water. I think it's like what we said is you're going to pay attention and
Yeah.
act accordingly.
Yes. Okay. I don't know if I want, maybe I should take back the question that I can't
can
unask
take
that
that
question. No, it stays in, but it's real, but it's a topic that comes up regularly and maybe my wife just shouldn't listen to that part. We'll see. Okay. So we've kind of,
It's still safer than driving your car or walking under a loaded coconut tree.
for sure. 100%. Yeah. And that's good context. Okay. So you've been starting to talk about paddling and you talked about when you came over here and, learning it while you were guarding. Let's talk about prone paddling.
Okay.
Because when I met you, you were both doing your PhD program and you were paddling prone. So talk about when you first, like you had said you were reaching out, but let's talk about what prone started as and turned into for you.
I got a fellowship to the National Science Foundation to study my sharks, and that gave me so my school was set and it enabled me to buy my first paddleboard. I had a hollow Waterman that was made by John Martin of Hawaiian Design, so he'd licensed the mold. And
Was that called the Mololo or something?
no, the Malolo and the Leo were different ones. This was a Craig Lockwood
Oh,
out of California.
I've had Craig on this podcast.
Yeah. So his design, and then John Martin made a mold, and so it's a hollow board was my first paddleboard.
I don't like hollow paddleboards. I paddled a Mololo for Molokai as a 2-man team, and okay, go on.
I'm with you.
Very difficult for me.
Right. So that was my first channel, my first and second, maybe my third channel. I paddled that same board. It was purple on the top, white on the bottom, and then I wanted to. Gosh, I'm not sure how I hooked up with Mike Eaton. I think I wanted to do a paddleboard race in California because I was going over there, and Mike Eaton had the paddleboarding website at the time. It was
EatonSurf.com.
right. It was
the central hub for everything.
It was early days of the internet too, and everybody was just post everything on there, like races, things for sale.
And not to mention, Mike Eaton was just an absolute legend.
So he's phenomenal, and he had this guy, Mike Harnish, and he built this paddle ship for Mike Harnish. And Mike Harnish was like, do you want to paddle from Catalina with me? And I was like, you don't even know me.
Okay, just so you know, this was on the list. Now, this is, okay, you got to tell the story, but first and foremost, Mike Harnish paddled out of Newport. He and his buddy would paddle mostly night crossings. They did Catalina and everything, but Mike was quite a character. So how did you get connected with him? And we'll talk about the paddle ship.
It was literally just through that message board because
Really?
I wanted to paddle. Like I just wanted to paddle everywhere and anything at that time, like any body of water, I was game. And so he's like, do you want to do this paddle ship crossing with me? So I went to San Diego. I met Mike Eaton. I met Mike Harnish. And we went over to Catalina. My mom came.
Was this part of the Rock to Rock? You did it as part of a race.
It was part of the Rock to Rock. But then Mike Harnish just had all these ideas. Like the race went like this, and then we went parallel to them, like on our own track. Because he was like, we are going to be the first people to cross this channel tandem, and we're not going to have been accused of drafting or anything like that. And then he had these other ideas.
Hold on. I got to interject you. I apologize because I was there that year. Explain tandem paddleboarding and the paddle ship. Just explain, because
so I think it was either 21 or 24 feet long, and
it's so big.
It had 2 carved out areas to paddle, and I paddled in the front, and Mike paddled in the back. And Mike was he was a tandem surfer, right? So he'd done a lot of surfing with ladies holding him up, and he wanted a lady in the front. I think that was like part of the thing. And he told me, oh, I've asked all these other ladies and I try to paddle with them and then they all say no after we try it one time. So he got me, who was coming from Hawaii, and I showed up and I wasn't going to give up, you know? So I think I like stuck with it. But
in context, two people on the same board paddling
not
across
paddling in sync, because he didn't think that was important.
Oh.
Which was another thing, because I was coming from canoe paddling mindset, and I was everything is about timing. And he's like, no, it doesn't matter. So we paddled our own way, but it was a really awesome experience.
And you guys, so you did the 22-mile course from Two Harbors to Palos Verdes probably at the time.
Yeah, I think so.
With two people on the same board.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else has ever done it.
Why would you?
Wait, well, good point, right? So there's another Guinness book for you, or world first for you.
No, it was great, and it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that great. You know, I think the length of the board, the flatness of the channel, you're not really getting any runs. You don't get up and gliding. It's just a slog. We saw a blue shark.
Well, but I mean, listen, it was on the list, because when you compare it to like the Catalina race, Catalina Classic, or the Molokai to Oahu, the M2O, that are iconic races, and again, the Molokai, which we'll talk about in a second, is considered the world championship, and both those races are different because of the difference of the bodies of water. But nobody I've ever talked to, I mean, there's nobody else who's ever done it. I mean, I give you kudos for muscling through it, but I just have to say Mike Harnish, because for decades there was only a few of us that paddled, like small little groups, especially in California, in Orange County, and Mike was one of them.
Oh, and he ran that website, the Eaton website.
Yeah.
So he was like the gold standard of paddleboarding.
Yeah.
Like, he knew everything.
He did, but he was also kind of not crazy, but him and I think like Jim Davies, these guys would paddle. They would pick they'd plan it based on the tides and the moon, and they would paddle overnight, just the two of them, unassisted, no boat, from the mainland to Catalina, and sometimes back. And they would have X's in big Sharpie on the side of their boards denoting how many night crossings they'd done and how many day crossings. Like, it was it was just like Navy SEAL shit. It was completely out. Oh yeah. Bonkers. It was rad. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but they were doing it all the time. Super interesting. Again, Prone's gotten really big, which is amazing, and it's fun to watch. But like, there are some core characters in like the genesis of this sport. It goes back to the 50s, obviously, but like when I was in the 90s, like it was a different mindset.
It was a different animal, and I think you're right. The people I looked up to were all like that, like Mike Harnish. They were just, everyone was a character and a legend, you know. And it was like, oh, Brendan Shea, he can go double arm for like 2 hours. You know, so I tried a Hawaii Kai run once, only double arming, because I wanted to be like Brendan Shea. I mean, they were like these just amazing watermen, you know, like Dawson Jones and Mike Takahashi, Garrett McNamara, who started the Molokai race. Like, they were just such legends.
Monsters.
And then it, like the Waterman presence that Hawaii has, where there's like these 60-year-old guys who would just kick your ass. It was like phenomenal. Like how I said, I thought I was gonna have to get old and cut my hair short and, you know, like be sedentary. And then all of a sudden it was this world where you could accumulate this knowledge, you know, like physical knowledge, mental knowledge, and then use that to like beat the young people. And it's like, oh, game on.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about we'll get back to the icons and those people, because they come up in the next part of the story. But let's talk about your career in the Molokai Channel. Again, when I first met you, you were like, you won this thing. You won it 8 years in a row. Was it consecutive?
Not in a row,
okay,
yeah.
so you have 8 wins of the World Championship. You had the record for 15 years. How did you get to be so prolific? The only person that has more wins in that channel is Jamie Mitchell. I mean, you're in pretty rarefied air there. So let's talk about your time. Why was it such a big deal for you? Just talk about those years and your focus.
I think the KEV channel, like the Molokai to Oahu channel, was my focus for those years. In addition to the marine science, like it was very definite both sides of myself. You know, going to school, my PhD work was really important to me, but then the athletic part, and as we talked about, I've always kind of had the two sides of myself. But I would just paddle. I paddled canoe as I started, like 6-man. I would paddle 1-man, although I never owned one, but I would race them. I paddled kayak. I paddled paddleboard. Like I would paddle the channel like 4 times a year on different crafts. I would just, any excuse to get out there. And living on the south shore of Oahu is kind of like, that's a Molokai mecca, right? That's what people are training for. That's where the race ends. And so it was kind of my world. I just kind of, yeah.
So doing it,
there.
so we hadn't brought up, you had mentioned 6-man, but 1-man and ski. So you're doing all crafts, and you're doing like the Hawaii Kai run, I imagine, is your regular training ground, which is some of the best paddling, best training grounds ever. I mean, that's where the best of the best train all the time. And that is, as you said, that's the beginning of the Hawaii Kai run is the finish of the Molokai race. So you spent so much time out there really understanding the water and how to take advantage of its different conditions, right?
Well, I think that the middle of the channel is really different than the Hawaii Kai run, but yeah, I think Hawaii Kai run teaches you a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of Molokai people in here, and I was asked, how do you train? Can you train Danny Ching or Johnny Puakea or Kai Bartlett? Can you train for this in California? And the answer is like, no. You can, but you got to spend a lot of time in Hawaii. And how do you get really good in that channel? Is spending a lot of time in that channel. So as you said, you're doing it on all crafts. You're crossing it 4 times a year. And then you're also connected with the right people. And you had shown me earlier today, kind of like it's really neat. Not like a diary, but you had kept details about the race, who's going to be there, what you're going to do. Like today, that's super commonplace.
Right.
Like, really planning it out and having a strategy. Like every time I've done those, I kind of I'm going to go as hard as I can, right? For as long as I can. Like it never pans out very well. You were very strategic. Was your training super dialed in? Did you go back to kind of like the swimming roots and really get dialed?
So my swim coach in college, Rich Furman, he helped us write our triathlon programs. And when I wanted to do the paddleboard race, I think I emailed him and I was like, Rich, give me a hand. And he's like, you know how to do it. Like, make your own program. And so I looked at what we'd done for triathlon, and then I looked at actually like halhigdon.com, like the marathon runner, and I used the marathon program to plan a training program for paddleboarding just by time, right? Like it's about the same amount of energy I feel like paddling the channel as a marathon, and so just train for it the same way, and then race it like it's a triathlon. So like, how much food are you going to need to take in? It's like every 45 minutes and that kind of thing. And just treating it like that, even though it's on a different craft.
It worked out pretty well, huh?
Yeah.
So talk about racing that channel. Because were there many women racing at the time? Or were you, again, I think back in the early 2000s, it wasn't nearly as big. Now there's stand up and foil and all this stuff, but that was purely a prone race.
Yeah, it feels like the race has gotten a lot bigger, but I'm not sure there's like more prone paddlers doing it, because now, like how you said, there's the team, there's the stand up, and it definitely used to be both kind of more casual in the sense that people would enter last minute, and a lot of people would kind of wait till they could see, oh, what are the conditions going to be like, and now you got to register by March or you're not getting in. I forget the question. Oh, racing the channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who were you racing against? Were there many women?
Well, no, like so some of my wins kind of feel silly because it's like I was the only woman, and then it was like, did I really win, or how did I actually do? So I was always comparing myself to the men. There were 3 ladies who did the channel before me, but they didn't make the official cutoff time, so they're like not on the trophies, which I think is terrible. It was like this woman, Iris, Helene Phillips, Susan Chaplin, who people should look her up because she's like this amazing prone paddler. She's paddled all over the Caribbean, and also the Western Pacific, like just like 100-mile paddles, like food on her board forever. Like she's older than me, and I think she's still going. Like she's phenomenal.
Love that.
But yeah, so there's no other woman my first race, but I made the cutoff time. And then I also placed like 16th overall. So it's like, oh, okay, like I'm in the mix, you know, like I'm beating these people with big names that I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. But ironically, it took until like Mick DeBetta brought some of the girls from Australia, like Haley Badeup, who's like amazing athlete, and she beat me, but it was close. Like she beat me by 2 minutes, and she's like full world Olympic athlete. And I was like, oh, she only beat me by 2 minutes. Like I'm actually good at this, or like maybe I can do it. And so it was a weird thing where I didn't win, but I felt like her presence and like Shakira Westthorpe after her really made me feel like I can do this sport. And so we traded off channel wins, but then I also raced against them in other places in Australia. And again, it was like a race. So I'm like, oh, like I'm fast enough to race these ladies. Yeah. And I'm not just like winning Molokai because I live here or have some kind of advantage. Like it is a real thing, but there's definitely a lot of self-doubt about, because I didn't become like the Olympic swimmer. And then people are, oh, you know, it's the world championship, but like, what are my credentials, or am I bona fide in that way? And so I think like having those like women with some real athletic chops that were verified in other venues come and race against, like that proved to me that, you know, I did do something.
Yeah, you did. And you had a record that lasted for 15 years with all those names coming out to play, right?
But that was a stock record. Well, but we did race stock until like 2007. We started racing unlimited.
Do you have a preference?
Oh yeah, I like the unlimited
You
board.
did.
Oh God,
You
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Well, for a couple of reasons, I think I'd had dislocated my shoulder before I ever even paddled the channel. The first time I was trying to train on a paddleboard with the lifeguards on Oahu, like behind Rabbit Island. And so I felt like I was always kind of compromised from the beginning. And I think stock paddling is probably honestly my thing. Like I think I'm better on a stock board relatively than an unlimited board. But the unlimited board is so forgiving with the rudder. Because and living on Kauai, where, you know, it's like onshore wind a lot of the time, if I had to train only stock on the east side, I'd be in a world of hurt. I like the rudder.
Got it.
But I also have a kind of a short board. Like my board's 14.6, so stock is 12 feet fixed fin, and then a lot of the guys are riding like 16, 17 foot boards, especially in California or flatter water races. I had a 16-foot board. Was my first unlimited board that Mike Eaton made me was 16 feet, and then I think Joe Bark made me a 15-footer, and then we just started making it smaller. And I had some real square, kind of more knee paddling boards that were my first open or unlimited boards from Joe, but I don't paddle all that much on my knees. A little bit, I like to mix it up, but I'm mostly going to be like 80-90% laying down. And so Joe made me this, it's like a stretched out CT, and it's kind of round. And he's like, Kanesa, I have this idea, and it'll fit in the chops. And so fit between the bumps. So it's like, it's 14 feet, 6 inches long, and it's kind of round, but kind of square. And it's just fun. And you don't need to be in like amazing shape to get it going again. So if you lose your runner, you can get it back up and going. And
So it's a bit of a cross section between an unlimited and a stock board.
It's a fun shape.
It's a fun shape. Well, I don't want to give it away, but we're coming up. So the Molokai race is always at the end of July, so it's coming up.
Yeah.
Keep her out on some of the boards coming from California. I think they're going to look very familiar to what you are talking about, because my Molokai board is 17, double concave. Some of the new ones coming across this summer are very different, very similar to what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how those go, because I know that some of the top guys are mixing it up a little bit.
I think they go better. I think my fastest board I ever like rode hands down, double concave, but it's not the fastest board for me to get across the channel, because I can't keep it running at that high speed. Like I just don't have the muscle mass.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Rad. Any of those races, thanks for sharing that about the board. I can nerd out on that all day long. Any of the races more meaningful to you than others? Any of the Molokai wins?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them. Like the 2001, that was my first race. That was really cool. 2004, that's my record race. So that was really neat. And I was only like, my fourth time, I guess. But that race, I also bet George Ramos for his board.
No way.
Yeah.
George is just legendary Hawaiian waterman.
And so if I beat him, I would get his board, but then he beat me by 2 minutes. But he was so mad I was that close. He like gave me the board after and threw it at me. But that race was amazing because it was like an east-southeast wind, and we had a rising tide, and we were coming across, and I was watching my watch on my board, like on my board, and my escort boat was like, "You're gonna make it under whatever this time," and I was like, "No, hell no! Like we're going an hour faster than that." And then you kind of save some energy for when the water's going to get sticky. And like, it didn't get sticky. Wow. We just shot right into Hawaii, and like, I wasn't tired, you know, it was the only channel that I've finished. And I felt like, let's go again.
And that was the record year?
Yeah.
What was your time?
I think it was like 5:54 or something so stock.
That's so fast. That's amazing. Good for you. I love that. And again, it stuck for 15 years. That speaks volumes.
Then I have one other one.
Let's go.
So the 2005, so Haley Badeup had beat me in 2003, and she didn't come 2004, which was her mistake. 'Cause it was a great year. But then 2005, she came back, and that year was so choppy. And we didn't, like, paddling pants for whatever reason didn't exist yet. So we were just paddling in bikini bottoms. And I just saw a picture of myself finishing that race, and I'd forgotten, but I was bloody. Like the whole front of my legs, I'd lost all the skin.
Just because you're getting pitched around on that.
And on the stock board, you're moving around so much.
Yeah. Wow. Pay to play. Got it done. Pretty amazing. You came over into the Catalina Classic.
Yeah.
Once? Just
once.
How'd you do?
Well, that was a funny year because Mike Eaton escorted me. Oh, we went on Phil Edwards' boat, like that he'd shaped out of surfboard foam. Wow. Yeah. So we took Phil Edwards' boat across from California to Catalina, and I remember Mike Eaton called it the Slipper. I don't know if that was the name of it, but it was this really cool boat. And so I went with him and Kevin Eslinger, who's also Tarzan. Super legend. And he brought two boards, a stock board and a 14-foot board. And I didn't like the stock board, but I should have raced stock because Jane Carnes was there and she raced stock. I didn't like the board, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna ride the 14-footer and I'm just gonna do it, and so I was the first girl across, but that year Jane placed third overall stock, and that was the first time a woman got an award in the Catalina race, and so I think like she takes that year because that's pretty amazing. Yeah. They didn't have women's awards yet. Yeah. And she got third overall.
Jane's she was a hammer. She was
just
awesome.
Amazing.
Awesome. I haven't talked to her in a long time, but she's a great gal.
But yeah, that was a pretty cool race.
Super
other cool thing about Catalina is like you see all the guys lined up, you know, the start of the race, but then they call the finishers from the slowest person to the fastest. And I'd never seen that before. And then you see these guys walking up and you're like, oh, I saw him on the beach and he's like got a 6-pack, you know? And I thought for sure. And he was like an hour behind me. Like, how's that possible? And so you really realize that in ocean sports, like what you look like does not determine where you finish. It's so cool.
It's so cool. It's so funny because before we got online, we were talking about we have a lot of similarities. Except that I don't have any wins in Catalina or Molokai. Or a PhD. Maybe there aren't any similarities. But I pulled up to my very first race. It's so funny you just said that. I've told the story quite a few times. My first race was the Beta Bay in San Diego in the mid-90s. And I pulled up, and my board had done the classic a bunch of times. It was sunburned. It was the color of this wall. And I pulled up in San Diego to the start of the race the day before. You had to check in. And I just remember seeing all these brilliantly white boards and these really fit guys. Right. And one guy in particular was I was intimidated. I'm like, I should just drive home. I'd been training by myself. There was nobody else training. I had no idea what to expect, but I was like intimidated for sure. And the same thing, I beat most of those guys, and I was like, oh, it isn't what you look like. It's what you can do in the water and how you train and everything. Yeah. I didn't win that one either, but I beat that one guy in particular and quite a few. But it was really eye-opening for me and gave me a level of confidence. I'm like, all right, don't worry about what people look like. Yeah. Let's go grind.
Right. Really, and then you're like, oh wait, your paddle is this, and then how small are my hands? And that is also still amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like, how does that not matter? I must have the smallest paddlers out there.
Right. I mean, there's women paddling with us at home now, prone, and one gal, Alyssa's been on Alyssa Norwood, she's 5 feet tall at best, and she's a hammer. She just loves it, and she's over 50, and she's going super hard. She's paddling with people that are 6'2" and 22 years old, you know? It's awesome to see. Awesome. I love it. It's awesome. It's the great equalizer, how hard you train and your mental focus.
Also, like what you gain from those multi-generational sports. And like my first experience, and that was the triathlon, because all of a sudden I was like 19 years old, and I had a 60-year-old friend, you know, literally call him up, let's go ride bikes. And that's really prevalent in Hawaiian culture, like multi-generational living, multi-generational sport, and certainly in canoe paddling and in paddleboarding. And I think it's really healthy for communities.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right, when you can have those connections with people, and we're seeing that more and more as in the prone world, as prone is growing. I'm really fortunate where I live. For many years, there was 3 of us paddle prone. At one point, it was Mike Harnish and Scott Lincoln and myself, and next year would be but there was only a few. And now we'll have over 100. We'll probably have 150 people do the Ben Carlson, Catalina, Avalon to Newport coming up in September, and then it'll be the 10th annual. And you're getting this cross section. We've got the mayor of Newport doing it. We've got dads doing it. We have parents and kids doing it together. You've got women. It's not a race, but you'll have 150 prone paddlers paddling together across the channel. How different is that? It's amazing. There's so much camaraderie, and it's just a big, really cool stoke. And watching some of these people go from, you know, whatever athletics they're into or surf and get the level of fitness and confidence in the ocean, it's rad to watch. It's been really fun to see that. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but sport really does. If you can have those multi-generational influences, super neat.
It's really neat.
Rad. What other crafts have you talked about? 6-man, 1-man, ski, anything else? I mean, were you racing those?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I didn't ever own a 1-man, but I borrowed them and raced them. Well, I raced the relay. So I had my friend Arlene Holzman, she was really tall, like 6'4", and I'm pretty short. So we were a good team because we could fit 2 seats on her. She cut hers a little bit, but then I could put mine in front. That's and so we could switch off the boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any idea how many times you've done the channel, the Molokai channel?
No, I'm not sure. Not that many times. There's many people, over 20, maybe 25 or so, but.
Pretty good.
But
when was the last time?
Pretty low. It's been a long time. I think 2016. So I'm 9 years. I thought about trying to do it this year because, you know, the Duke, the Waterman Hall of Fame thing kind of really inspired me. And then it feels funny to get up and get an award and be like, I haven't done this in 9 years. You know, I paddle a little bit or do the Evan Valier's Nepali race. But I hadn't trained for the channel in a long time. So then I got drunk on New Year's Eve, and I texted Mick about could you make a training program for me? So he's been emailing me, Kanesa, here it is. Here's the next month. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to go once a week. And then he's like, you need to go at least twice a week, you know, just for fitness. And my husband told me, you're not going to make it once a week. And he was right. But I went this morning because I was
you did?
Oh, yeah.
All fired up?
I couldn't come in here and talk about paddling without having got on the paddleboard. So went to the river, did mixed workout, and as far as training in flat water for Molokai, because he'd given me some interval work to do previously, actually when I went from Molokai to Catalina, and then he trained a bunch of girls to try to come and beat me over the years. So we had that kind of a rivalry, but he's really good programming, and I've been doing some of his river workouts, and then I've done a couple ocean paddles, and I can feel the difference. So I am like, oh, kind of fired up, and I'd like to paddle next year, but
We'll
I
see.
don't.
Right?
We'll see. There's a
It'd be
lot
good.
of other time demands. I keep, choosing family, choosing. I got a lot of injuries, physical rehab.
Yeah, I get it. We're speaking the same language. Listen, you've brought it up. I was going to save it for later, but let's just talk about it because it ties into the multi-generational. You've talked a lot about the people that you've had the wonderful opportunity to interact with them. You're talking Mick, but you also talked about, I mean, to have spent time with Mike Eaton and all these people, and then just being in the Waterman world in Hawaii. You mentioned George Ramos, and there's so many examples. You were recognized in the most lovely way in the Hawaiian Waterman Hall of Fame in 2024. Can you tell us about that award and why it was important or meaningful for you?
That's such a heavy question.
Do you want me to share my perspective of it first?
Okay.
Okay, so the Duke Kahanamoku Foundation through Outrigger Canoe Club has this award that I think started in 2010. 3 people a year recognized by the Hawaiian, are inducted into the Hawaiian Waterman Hall of Fame in 2020. And you can bring it up online. It's an incredible website. And if you go to Outrigger Canoe Club, you see these names of the likeness that are kept up year round there. But it's the who's who. I mean, you think about Hawaiian watermen, water people that are iconic, accomplished, and you were recognized this year. And what was really amazing, and so you had Nick Beck from Kauai and Chris Duplanty. So that you've got water polo, canoe building, and canoe paddling, and you've prone. But what they recognized for you additionally, which was so rad, it wasn't just prone, it was your world of marine biology, ocean advocacy. As you said earlier, like the 2 parts of you were both recognized for your contributions.
Yeah.
There's nothing like, I had Kalani Vera in here. Kalani was recognized.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, it brings me to tears to think about it. Like, I couldn't think of a more impactful, more powerful, more amazing recognition than that award. So huge congratulations for you.
Thank you. I definitely agree. I was like super humbled when Billy Pratt called me and told me, and then, kind of not sure what to think about it. And also I think it's like I said, it's a pretty heavy honor to be a waterman of Hawaii. And like we talked about, like, I wasn't born here. I moved here when I was 24 years old, and I met these legendary people who like took me in, and not sure how they saw what they saw in me, but like Mike Takahashi gave me a free entry to my first Molokai race. And he'd never met me, but people had told him, like, oh, there's this girl who wants to paddle. Or like, and I go over to Molokai the first time, you're gonna paddle across, I don't know what I'm doing. We don't even know how to work the GPS. And I ran into Dawson Jones and his wife at Kanakakai in the grocery store, and his wife looked at me, and my mom was with me, and she's like, oh, she'll be fine. Like, she just looked at me and she's like, oh, she's gonna be fine. And like, that was like pretty confidence inspiring, but also, you look at the people in the Hawaii Waterman Hall of Fame, it's like Duke himself, and there's no, like, I was the first person recognized for the sport of prone paddling.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
There's other prone paddlers in there, but there's no one who that's their primary sport. And for me to be that person, and it is such an honor, and it's really a result of all those older guys who believed in me, like, and my training partners, and the guys who built me the boards, like, we built my first unlimited board. Like, I flew to California, and Mike Eaton and I, like, I had a design, and we like literally chalked it out on the floor, and there was like all this R&D. And then like after Mike retired, and we were paddling Joe's boards, and Joe would send us like all these different boards, and we'd like trade them off. And and it was just this like super collaborative with training schedules and boards and I don't think they fed me, you know. It was really like whatever I accomplished in paddling and in paddleboarding was definitely like a result of the paddle boarders, but also like the other sports, you know. Like I learned how to read the ocean from the canoe paddling, and like train with all the one-man guys, and I'd ride my kayak so I'd be a little faster so I keep up with them, and you know, just like, oh, it's like the water's so big we're gonna cancel the race, and I'm pretty tippy in my kayak, and like Aaron Napoleon's like, I got you. You know, like I'll watch out for you. And so we just got these opportunities to do these things when I was young and dumb and didn't know like there might be real consequences.
When you have people like that looking out for you, I feel pretty confident about your odds out there, right? When Aaron Napoleon says he's got you, you're in about as good a hands as you could ask for, right?
Right.
Good for you. It's just, I get chicken skin talking about it for you. It's just so rad. Like from my life of being a water guy, anybody that is recognized in that forum to me is just, it's an incredible accomplishment, Kanesa. Like I'm so proud of you. It's so rad. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
Super cool. But the other part of it, so bring back to, you were recognized both for prone, but also for what you do in your career. So let's go back into that if we can, because you've got some really incredible things that you do. So we've talked about your education and the focus of your dissertation, your PhD. But you've got, well, what you're doing today, right? So I was kind of thinking about it in like almost like three, there's probably more, but the way I like professor, educator, and then you've got you're the director, and then you're the host. So let's go through like the three, and then there's community, so maybe even four, but let's go through each section. What are you doing? Are you a professor? Are you teaching, instructing? What are you doing in that aspect?
So I took a kind of strange trajectory at the University of Hawaii. I started in the College of Education. So I started as a lecturer. Actually, I was teaching at the University Laboratory School. So the university used to run a K-12 experimental school where like every classroom is a random stratified representative of the state. So literally like scholastic ability, socioeconomic background, ethnicity, and then we develop curriculum and test them in the classrooms. And there used to be a lot of laboratory schools across the country. And I started there, and then I knew there was going to be a professor position opening up in the College of Ed doing science education. And I wanted that job, but I wanted to kind of feel it out and get some experience. And then eventually I got hired into that role. So I was assistant and then associate and then tenured professor in the College of Education. And that was really about developing curriculum, testing it in classrooms, and then working with teachers across Hawaii and doing teacher-student research, like what kind of curriculum can we bring, what are the teacher attributes, and what are the outcomes of the students, and how, like, what kind of inputs affect student outcomes. So like how can we help teachers to gain more knowledge, or how can we provide them with better curriculum, or is it more resources, literally things to touch and hold in the classroom. And then out of that, actually, NOAA put out a request for proposals for marine science curriculum with like an extended outreach component. And I was already working with my husband and videoing, but he wasn't my husband yet. And he was videoing these workshops for me, and he'd videoed some other things for the university about sea level rise and stuff like that. And then we're in this meeting, and he says, "Oh, you need a TV show," like, because he makes TV.
This is your husband?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's like, "You need a marine science TV show."
But you weren't married yet?
No, we were dating.
Okay.
And he pitched this idea, and the director of the Sea Grant program was like, "Sure, well, let's put that in the proposal." So we had this collaborative proposal from Sea Grant, who Thor was working for, like consulting, and I was working in the College of Ed, and we wrote this proposal together, and it got funded. And so part of the proposal was to revise a curriculum that we have online, it's a freely accessible, like nuts and bolts marine science curriculum called Exploring Our Fluid Earth. And then the tandem piece to that was our Voice of the Sea TV series. And so we had the first 30 episodes, and we used to put out 19 a year. So it was like hot and heavy. really fast. And now we're in our 12th season on K5, and now we're putting out like 7 episodes a year, but they're much more involved, much more edited. We have this more collaborative process, and they're more polished and more like a, half-hour documentary.
Okay, so interesting at all. So basically, the 3 different parts of your career, the way I thought of it, or even 4 with community in there, but you've got the professor role, but you write a grant to the Sea Grant, and through that you put together the
community part, like the outreach
and
component.
the program.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're all interlaced. Okay, I thought that they were all maybe like freestanding, but no, they're all kind of interrelated.
They were all kind of interrelated. And then we had like other ongoing projects too, a variety of things, but that was the major push that got us to do Voice of the Sea. And then we have another, like a smaller elementary curriculum project called Sea Earth Atmosphere. Our project in Hawaii's intertidal, like monitoring intertidal algae and invertebrates. And all of those kind of have curriculum pieces and outreach pieces.
Super interesting. So when did you, I'm going to bounce around a bit because I'm just trying to connect
I'm not
all
even
the dots
sure
here.
I made sense.
No, you did. But Hawaii Sea Grant Center, you've become the director thereafter?
So I started collaborating with Hawaii Sea Grant in 2009, and I became the director of their center. And then the way that Hawaii Sea Grant, so there are 34 Sea Grant programs across the country. We sit now under NOAA, but we're parallel, if you've heard of like land grant colleges. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially investment by the federal government in colleges, but in communities, and they're funding usually research and that's more applied. So more applied than might be happening in the rest of the university. So like our land grant program, for example, does a lot of work with seeds and farming and farmers on the ground in Hawaii with like pests that they're dealing with, whatever it is that they're dealing with. And our Sea Grant program similarly is dealing with like anything coastal, so things up in the mountains up Molokai that affect the ocean, things in the ocean that affect the land, and kind of anything in between, but it's really applied stuff. So we have extension agents that live and work out in the community in Hawaii, also in the Pacific and American Samoa and like the Republic of the Marshall Islands. And then we do a biennial, so every 2-year small grant program where researchers, community, we have an indigenous science competition now, so people can write in for small amounts of money. It's anywhere from, a couple, like $10,000, $50,000, depending on what thing you're applying for, and also a graduate student. So we also kind of separately run fellowship programs that dovetail with people's research. So we're providing education and then like kind of applied science that deals with community needs.
Got it.
And then we have a center for education that kind of shares out that work. So a lot of the TV episodes I make are about research projects that Sea Grant is involved with, but then we also make ones that are totally independent if we have funding to do that, or yeah.
Crazy. Rad. So you've got, you're doing grants and curriculum building, or maybe not, but it provides a structure that's out there. You said nuts and bolts, right?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Let me ask you this, and because I really want to find out more. I want to talk more about Voice of the Sea. Where you are today with all of these, director, host, you're doing these shows, is when you were going through your PhD program, would you have ever guessed that it would have pivoted from studying the Hammerheads to where you are and what you're doing today?
No, I don't think my job really existed. I kind of created it, but then, like I said, we're doing a lot of TV as part of our research. Our lab was asked to be on TV a lot, and so in some ways it's kind of continuing that, but shining a light on and highlighting things that aren't maybe as sexy as sharks, like.
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about it. You took us right into Voice of the Sea. How long has Voice of the Sea been going now? I think you mentioned
we're in our
12th season. And you're now doing 7 a year, 7 episodes. These are like 30-minute. Where can just because we're doing it, we can do it at the end. Where would somebody find this?
So you go to voiceofthesea.org, and we have all our episodes up. You can search by season, you can search by where they are. So in the Pacific, we have a couple like Atlantic episodes and some continental episodes. You can also search by award-winning episode. So
Well,
it's pretty cool.
let's talk about those awards. You've been very recognized for the program. Talk about what that has looked like.
So I think we have 59 Telly Awards, which is like the TV award. You submit your episode in, and then reviewers review them and score them. But that's pretty neat. We won 10 Telly Awards this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What kind of viewership are you seeing, and who is the target audience?
Oh, that's super, super interesting. So our target audience is middle-aged people. And we air on K5, which is available on cable, but also non-cable. And that was really important when we started the show, is we wanted to be just on broadband access TV. We started off like our Nielsen metrics were like 2,000 people a week were watching, and then we grew up to about 25,000, and we stayed steady at 25,000 watching, according to the surveys that K5 does. And then this last year we've started to drop off, and I think it's a result of like people are not watching TV as much. Like there's been there's an evolving shift, but our online audience has grown kind of in parallel with that, which is what we would expect. But our viewership on K5 is predominantly middle-aged, so like over 45 years old. They've lived in Hawaii for at least 16 years. Most of them own their own home, and that's like, they're non-college educated, primarily our audience. And I think it's a really beautiful audience. Like I go to the grocery store, I stand in line to get coffee, like people have seen our show. If I go to a lecture at UH Manoa, people know about the show, but they probably don't watch it. It's not for scientists or for the university as much. I mean, it's for those people to share their work, if that's what the episode's about. But it's also about providing information for people who otherwise like wouldn't get it. They're maybe not going to go to like the Bishop Museum outreach event, but they deserve to know what's happening in marine science also. And we try to, and then provide a venue for people to share and to provide different voices. I think there's a lot of stereotypes about, what does a scientist look like and what do scientists do? And so having older people and younger people, people who speak with an accent, people who speak in broken English, and letting them be the voice of their research, of their culture. How does the research and culture intersect in their community? And I think that's really valuable, especially if we want young people to go into environmental science and marine science. We want them to make a difference in their community and their lives. We need the older people in the community to see those jobs as available, as valuable, so that they can support the youth in like going into those careers. So as much as, you want, I think, career day for your middle schooler, you also want the adult population to see these as bona fide options and options for their kids.
Rad. Yeah. It's amazing that you guys, as you said, kind of created this. What was it, Thor? You guys saw a grant and you pursued it, and now it's turned into 12 seasons, 59 Telly Awards. People recognize you in line at the grocery store. 25,000 people a week watching?
Probably a little less than that at this point, but yeah.
That's significant. Mostly in Hawaii being watched?
So we are on air in Hawaii on K5 Saturdays and Sundays at 6. Right now is our programming. We're also on air in American Samoa and Guam, and both those places we're airing like 7 to 9 times a week. So they'll plug us in whenever there's kind of a hole in the schedule. And then we used to be on TV in Palau on a couple different stations, but right now we're just throughout the Federated States of Micronesia on the Pohnpei radio broadcast channel.
Wow. It's really amazing. And so I guess, what do you hope, maybe what's the mission, or what's your hope comes from all of the content, all of the information that you're sharing?
I think it's to people are interested to learn more and to get involved in whatever capacity that is. You know, we have episodes about sea turtle rehabilitation or marine debris removal, or like the importance of removing invasive plants in a beach area in order to maintain dune health. And there's the fact that the health of the forest influences the amount of rain that falls, which influences the stream health, which is going to influence the estuary, and then eventually the corals. And so no matter what you like to do or where you are in your life, there's an area that you can help in or get involved in and make a difference. And then again, just to know that these things are going on and to be aware and to care. I think, like, I interviewed Herb Lee, he's from the Pacific American Foundation, and he runs the Waikalua Loko'ia in Kaneohe Bay. And he said, everybody talks about like malama aina, which is like taking care of the land, taking care of place. But he's like, malama aina is the hard part. Like, first you have to aloha aina. Like, you have to love the land and love the place before you can take care of it. And so if we want behavioral change, first we need to care about it. And I think that's, with our show, we can prompt people to want to make a difference. And through surveys, we've shown like people will maybe be more inclined to vote on a certain issue or to take certain measures. But we're not changing the world with a half-hour TV show, but hopefully we can, touch an emotional chord and help people to build aloha for the environment and for the people who are doing the environmental work, and make connections, and then those connections will carry on into the rest of their lives.
Right. So that's the call to action is the aloha aina. Is that what it would be?
I think that, and then eventually, you got to malama, because that's how we make a difference.
So love it first and care for it second.
Yeah.
Rad. What a cool, again, you reflect on things, you're like, wow, look what this has become, and look what we're doing with it out of a thought, Really
or then
amazing.
The number of people that we've been able to profile who just aren't alive anymore is pretty phenomenal. Like, that's one thing I definitely did not expect.
Well, it becomes a time capsule, right? Which is kind of what this is too, right? Which I love that. I mean, it's super important to get, like, I think a lot of what you're talking about brings me to like David Attenborough, who's 99 years old. He's been doing this incredible work around the world for generations now, and he won't live forever, but somebody's got to pick up the mantle and run with it. And that's kind of what you guys are doing, more focused here, but it's the same thing. Like, you got to love the land and you got to care for the land. Otherwise we're all in big trouble. And
there's a couple other shows that have come online recently, like Outside Hawaii. It's on OC16. It's actually on the same time as us, but it's a very similar show. There's another one in-house that K5's making, and I think there's room for the kind of work that we do. Like, bring it on. We're making our next episode that's coming out. It's about ciguatera poisoning, and the researcher that we're working with, he's like, Kanesa, I'm doing a thing with the KITV News. Can I share some of the, like, just share it all. I think we're not trying to gatekeep anything. Like, you want the pictures, you want the video, like, put it out there. The purpose of our show is to just share information, and I think there's room for more shows in our market. There's room for these kind of local, regional shows, I think, in all kind of communities. Like, people want to know what's happening in their backyard, and I think in a lot of ways our media has gone so global, so national, that everything you're watching is either it's like Netflix, it's like created just for entertainment, or it's so broad scale. But like, tell me what's happening in my estuary, at my beach. Yeah. I think it is like, we make it, it's like two people who we make this show, and other people can do that too.
Do your part.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, it's available, and I think the hardest part is finding the platform to share with and get an audience going. But I think people are hungry for information more than we realize. We don't only need entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, you can only spend so much time scrolling before it just goes dark. So go find the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the stuff that's material and meaningful to your community,
Right.
right? It seems like community is a big part. Like you seem like you're very passionate, passion project, maybe there's a reason you're here, but I mean, passionate about not just the environment, but the community's impact and maybe the community's responsibility, or how to influence people to have that aloha aina.
I think that's, well, we impact the places that we go pretty profoundly, right? And I mean, you can see it if you sort of turn around as you're leaving and look back at where you've been, and you know, whether it's the sand or the dirt, like you've left a footprint, and like, let's make that a nice footprint.
Yeah. Hallelujah. My kids know I have such, like, from a pet peeve, I don't have many, but people that leave trash just drives me crazy. And when I'm in Hawaii, I see it and I'm like, it's worse. It probably shouldn't be worse. It should be bad everywhere. But when I see it here near a beach and this, like, you're like, come on, it's really sad. So yeah, everybody do your part, right?
Yeah.
Leave only footprints, nice, clean footprints, right? How kind of bringing this all together? You said you've been in Hawaii now for 26 years, more than half your life. Seems like you're as immersed in the culture. You've been recognized in it. You're recognized in the market because of your work you're doing here. What is, not to sound cheesy, but like, what does Hawaii mean to you after growing up in California and Colorado and being born in Canada, but you're 26 years in the islands? And just, it's funny, when you mentioned Canada, I was like, because you have a bit of Hawaiian in your speech, but I was like, is that Hawaiian or is that Canadian? But you've been here a long time. So what does it mean to you to be not only to have been here for as long and call this home, but also to have this role in the community that you have put yourself in or found yourself in?
You just ask really hard questions.
What does it mean to you to live in Hawaii?
Right?
Or what does Hawaii mean to you?
That's such a,
I don't know.
That's such a big question. I think maybe at the end of my life, I'll know. I think I'm still, because I feel like I'm really still learning about that. And at this point in my life, like as a mom and a, academic person with like so much work to do, I don't get to spend as much time moving my physical body as I would like. But one of the things I have been able to do is actually since the pandemic, I spend a lot more time on Zoom. And one of the benefits of Zoom is that I can take Olelo Hawaii, so I can take Hawaiian language online. And I started at Kauai Community College in the 101 and the 201 series. And then for the last couple of years, I've been taking conversation and composition with my kumu, Paul Williams, Kumu Koki. And I think from those experiences, like maybe like learning more about what does it mean to live in Hawaii, because you start thinking about, and we talk about at Hawaii Sea Grant among my colleagues, like, and at UH Manoa, as we were trying this endeavor to become more and more a place of Native Hawaiian learning, and what does that mean to serve the community of Hawaii, in addition to the scholars that come from the continent and internationally, as students, as faculty. And I think like one of the big things for me is if you just take like a basic Hawaiian language structure, it emphasizes for the most part the action, and the subject comes second. And so it's all about what's being done, and who's doing it is not as important as the outcome. Like you start with the verb and then you have the subject. Yeah. And I think like to twist your brain and to compose an idea first in Hawaiian takes a flipping of it's a different way of looking at the world. And if we can look at the world with the outcomes that we want to have versus like I did this or I'm doing that, it's so similar to like how we might envision an educational module, right? You're gonna have a backward design. Like, what do I want my classroom to look like? What do I want my students to be able to know and do? And then like, how am I gonna get there? And so I think it's just a beautiful it's a beautiful way of looking at life. And I think that like as we can embrace that, we become more about community, and then there's like a more collective goal, and it's not so much like feeling put upon or feeling like there's this idea of kuleana, and you want to like owamo your kuleana, carry your burden, but your burden is not just a burden, it's a privilege. And so all these things that we have to do, it's like we also get to do them. And that surely makes your life a lot better if you can look at it that way.
I appreciate that. That is so, not just the outlook, but the fact that you're going down the path of learning Native Hawaiian, and it's really cool to see the resurgence that a lot of the youth are going after that now.
Yeah.
Like, it's really, really cool, but I didn't know you were doing that. So
I think
really
it's like
neat.
standing still. Like, I'm learning as fast as I can to stay still, because as you're saying, the resurgence of Alelo, and I think it really comes back to the Punana Leo, like the Native Hawaiian preschools. And when I moved here, those kids in the first couple of preschools, I think they were about 14 years old. And so what, like 26 years later, they're the ones with the Native Hawaiian businesses. Now there's like all kind of middle schools, high schools, immersion programs, and these people are adults and they're speaking Hawaiian. And so I remember a few years ago, I was looking at my Instagram and I couldn't read my friends' messages because I didn't speak well enough Hawaiian. And so now it's like, oh, you better get on the horse because you want to participate in these communities. Like, the language is not just and as you said, it's like not just a method of communication, but it's actually a way of being, and you can't understand the culture, the foods, the way of thinking until you understand the language.
Rad. That is really, really, really cool. I'm really proud of you for doing that. Like, that's like pretty inspiring. Not only the why, but the how and what it means and what you've taken from it. Really, really neat. And I think it's
really important. Yeah.
It's another piece of what you're doing with the program and with the Sea Grant and with your, like, it seems that it's all coming together. And again, I love that you were recognized for all of this, because it's all part of you. Yeah. Both from the educator, the host, the producer, the director, and the prone paddler. Like, it's just, it's really cool. And people can come to Hawaii and take, I mean, I'm a tourist that gets to spend a fair bit of time here, very blessed to do so, but I love to see like the full blown immersion that you're doing. It's really neat. So let's talk about that. How, you've talked about your husband Thor and all the stuff you guys do together. I've only met him once, and it was at the event when you were recognized. But I follow him on Instagram. So let's talk a little bit about what he does for, one of the things he does for fun. What does he do?
He's a boogie boarder, and I think his Instagram handle is Boogie Foil.
Why? Why is it Boogie Foil?
Because my husband foils on a boogie board, and he's pretty good at it, actually.
I'm sure.
He's so foil boogie boarding, believe it or not, I believe began in like the 80s in California. I guess there was these guys riding small foils on their boogie board, and then when we were first dating out on Oahu and he'd come over to visit me, there was an old man at Lighthouse, Diamond Head, and he was surfing on a boogie foil, and like Thor talked to him, and I didn't really understand. I wasn't really interested, quite honestly. I'd never ridden a boogie board. I was like, I'm a surfer. But it was my friend, now Kainoa alum's grandpa, and he had a foil at Loahi, Diamond Head. And then, so Thor's talking about it. People are like surf foiling all over the place. And our neighbor, Kaven, who's a retired firefighter, finally just gave Thor this wooden foil that he made. And he's like, just put it on your board and shut up about it, go try it. And so he's been on this quest ever since. He's like tried all these foils, but it's a really different thing that he does than surf foiling. So his specialty is like barreling shore break on his foil.
Really?
Yes.
Sounds like a dangerous approach.
But he's not like he's gotten barreled on it. I've seen him. He can get barreled, but it's more like he's flying a much smaller wing, and he's taking off on much steeper waves, and then he's trying to do airs.
Got it. Hey.
Whatever floats your boat.
Whatever floats your boat. Whatever flies it. I mean, foiling it's incredible to watch, and for him to take a different approach is pretty cool. You're also a mom. How's that been for you?
Momming has been great. I'm a mom of two. Well, one is my stepdaughter. She's 23, and then I have a 12-year-old that's biologically mine, and it definitely changed my life. Mm. It's a lot. So my stepdaughter, we had her half the time, and half-time parenting is pretty glorious. You know, it's like has ups and downs, but you still
get some time off.
Yes.
No time off with the 12-year-old?
Well, I get help for sure. Like my mom lives here, and she's very helpful. But yeah, it's an everyday.
Especially at that age, right?
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What's next for you? You have a lot going on. I don't know if there's room for next, but I mean, you talked about maybe prone again, but.
Oh, I got to do it again. I
think so.
Yeah, I'm definitely not done. I don't think I felt done when I finished. It was like, I did 3 channels, I think, after my daughter was born. And that was really important to me to like, get back out there and do it again. And then it was just, I think I finished 2016 and my mom and my husband were like, we're done. Like, you're just done. You know, they'd had enough. And partly it's like the time is a lot, but I think the stress of it's a lot because I really pushed myself to do well, and I want my training to be good, and I want the race to go well. So I've been doing like a lot of boogie board contests and stuff.
Oh, have you
like
really?
That. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tried to learn some tricks. Then I blew out my knee again, and then I broke my back. So there's.
How'd you break your back?
Boogie boarding.
Boogie boarding?
Yeah.
Where?
Big wave.
Where?
Like northeast side of Kauai.
Oh. I think I know the spot.
I didn't make the drop. It was probably the biggest wave I've ever taken off on. I think it was like a solid 15-footer, and it.
Right-hander?
Yeah.
I know the spot.
So that's been a struggle, and it's like 6 years ongoing, but
wow.
it's healing, and a lot of rehab.
Gotcha.
A couple knee surgeries.
Yeah.
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 Well, I was good in like the open water, but you get me near like hard land rocks and stuff, and I tend to crash into them.
Got it. Try not to do that.
Right.
All right, but there's another channel.
Yeah.
You're still going to get some barrels on a boogie. Oh, there's something else. What else?
Well, I'm going to go escort or go on the press boat this year, so I'm really excited about that. I've never watched the race. I'm a little afraid. I've never done it team either. Like I've done team one man, but I have this personal working hypothesis. Let's say theory because I'm going to try to use scientific language accurately. But I think the team hurts just as much as the solo. And I think if you go team, then you'd just be terrified to go back to solo. It's a different kind of pain, but you know, get the changes, getting on the board, going as hard as you can for 10, 20 minutes, and then short break, getting back in. It's just as hard. And then watching it, I think escorting is also really hard. You know, you get worn out, right? And so you're like, oh my God, how tired. I'm so tired from watching the race. How could I ever paddle it again? But
Kanesa, it's what I said before. We have a lot of similarities. I've only done Molokai. I've done it 3 times, but I've done it as a team every time.
Oh my God.
And I'm similar to, like, I can go at zone 2 all day, but at zone 4, I blow up. And so I haven't trained over here for it. So Molokai has gotten the best of me all 3 times, but I'm also not cut out for it. I need to be on my own board, doing my own thing for the whole channel, like I've done in Catalina a lot. At the same time, I either paddle or I usually don't go. I hate being on the escort boat because I have such FOMO. I want to be in the water.
Right.
I want to be out there. I have a very hard time being in the boat. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but being on the press boat should be pretty fun because then at least you have something to do and people to interact with. But just watching people race, it's very hard for me.
Right.
I want to be out there. I'd much rather be in the water.
I'm not a very good watcher. I don't cruise at the beach very well. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Listen, we talked a lot about the things you do. If people want to find, we talked about the program, but what's the best way to find the stuff that you're doing?
It's probably still that voiceofthesea.org. Like my email's up there. I think my phone number I'm pretty easy to find online. But yeah, you can find me on social media too. So I think I'm like Hi Kanesa on Instagram.
That should be easy enough.
Right? Kanesa Duncan on Facebook, and then our Voice of the Sea TV.
Proud of all the stuff you're doing professionally, because it's more than just a profession. It's really impacting the world. It's impacting your community. It's really touching people and hopefully driving improvements. And I mean, we have to take care of our world, right? And so by helping educate and inform and maybe motivate people is, that's where it's got to start.
Yeah. And I think the future looks good. You know, if you look at, there's a lot of young people out there, a lot of young girls doing really amazing things, like incredible athletes and incredible mental abilities.
Rad. Love it. Well, you're I'm sure quite a mentor and an inspiration to all of them. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh my
Super
God,
proud of
thanks for
you.
having
Super
me.
fun. I can't wait to see you race the channel again and see what's next for you professionally.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Voice of the T.
Voice of
I'm
the
gonna have
T.
to figure that one out.